So now that Civil War is out everywhere and everyone's given their thoughts about it and everyone pretty much seemed to have loved it, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I haven't done a list video on this channel for a while, but I'm going to start doing them on a semi-regular basis. But I'm kicking it off with my top 10 favourite MCU movies. Also, before I get into this list, please note the word there is favourite. These are not what I consider the best movies in the MCU. These are just my favourites in the MCU, and I'm giving you plenty of reasons as to why. So let's kick it off with number 10. Number 10 is Iron Man 3. I couldn't really justify putting Thor 2, Iron Man 2, or the Hulk, or the Incredible Hulk on this list. They just don't resonate for me as much as these other movies do. Iron Man 3 has its flaws, yes it does, but at the end of the day, it is a Shane Black movie. I do love his movies, and it had its good points and its bad points, but I think the good points just outweigh the bad points for that movie. I know a lot of people had an issue with the portrayal of the Mandarin. I'm one of those people, but I think it's not a terrible movie. It has its own merits. That's why it finds itself at number 10. Number 9. Number 9 is Avengers 2, Age of Ultron. Now this movie was overall, now that I've thought about it and watched it again, a little bit of a disappointment, but it does have its good points. It introduces us to Scarlet Witch and Vision and gave us that really cool moment where Vision lifted up Thor's hammer. That was awesome. And say what you will about Ultron, James Spader's portrayal of him was awesome. It was menacing, it was a little bit funny, and Andy Serkis as Claw was really good as well. Now obviously the movie does have issues with pacing and story, and just, you know, the whole thing was a bit of a mess. But overall, I did see it in IMAX in 3D, so that kind of skews me to be like, yeah, this movie was fucking awesome because big screen and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, it finds itself at number 9. Number 8. The first Captain America movie finds itself at number 8 for me. Going back and watching it, I found it to be much more enjoyable than the first time I actually watched it, because after Iron Man, it was like, yeah, this movie's okay, but he's a bit of a goody two-shoes. But going back and watching it, it's actually a very, very enjoyable movie. And looking at what's come since with the 2 Captain America movies after it, going back and putting them all in a trilogy, it's actually a very, very satisfying trilogy to sit down and watch without sort of having all the other Marvel movies in between. It set up Steve Rogers as probably the best we're going to get from Captain America. He is a bit of a Boy Scout, yes he is, but this version, how he sort of transformed from that initial Boy Scout-esque character to where he is now has been fantastic, and this movie is the movie that kicked it off. So it more than earns its place at number 8 on my list. Number 7. Thor. Now this movie was a huge risk going in because Thor's not one of the big Marvel action heroes that you think of when you think of Marvel comic books, but they pulled it off. The movie was very, very enjoyable. Kenneth Branagh's direction was fantastic. It managed to add these fantastical alien, you know, huge universal elements to the Marvel Universe without making it feel too overstuffed and too out of place. Chris Hemsworth was fantastic, and I can't really picture anyone else in this day and age as Thor. He does such a good job. He has that presence of a godlike figure. And let's face it, it introduced us to Loki, probably the best villain in the Marvel Universe by a long shot. So there we go. Thor earns its spot. Number 6. Ant-Man. I liked this movie quite a bit. It was a good change of pace after Age of Ultron happened to come out the same year. And yeah, look, it was a fun movie. I love Paul Rudd as a lead action guy, so a role I never ever thought I'd see him in, but he pulled it off really well. The action scenes were great. The use of the combat of him going bigger and smaller was really, really well done. There were some great, genuine, funny moments in this movie. And it was cool that it played out more as a heist movie than this big, overblown action blockbuster, which is what we got with Age of Ultron. It was more sort of self-contained, smaller movie, but still managed to feel like a part of the Marvel Universe as a whole. That's sort of a tricky thing to juggle when you're making a movie, but they pulled it off. Number 5. The original that kicked it all off, that's what I'm talking about, Iron Man number 1. This movie is the reason we have the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it is today, and Robert Downey Jr. is a big part of that. Talk about perfect casting. There's no one else remotely believable as Tony Stark / Iron Man as Robert Downey Jr. is in the role. He is fantastic. He is the reason that we have all of this today. There would be no Avengers, there would be no Captain America, there would be nothing without this movie. Now the movie itself is highly enjoyable. It has a bit of a throwaway villain, but it sets up Tony Stark's character really well. You see that change from the playboy to the sort of the activist that he becomes in later movies, and they just handle it really, really well. Now it's a fantastic movie and definitely worth a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a few years. Number 4. The Winter Soldier is number 4 on my list. This is the movie that took all that fantastical element and just sort of stripped it down to this really tight espionage crime thriller. It is fantastic. The Russo brothers have now taken over from Joss Whedon. They are the ones setting the tone for the MCU going forward, and it is a tone that I love. Great storytelling, amazing, tight, close action scenes are what keep this movie going forward, and it's just fucking fantastic how they took the Captain America character from the first one, who was the goody two-shoes kind of guy, and then we saw him evolve a little bit in Avengers, and then take him here. He is now one of the most interesting characters in the MCU by a long shot. They essentially managed to take what is the Marvel version of Superman, you know, the goody two-shoes, the straight Boy Scout, and turn him into this really interesting, deep character that every time I see Captain America on a big movie poster, I'm like, that is a movie I have to go see. Number 3. Number 3 is the most recent movie released, that's right, it is Civil War. I talked a lot about this in both my regular review and my spoiler review, which you can go and check out at your leisure. But yeah, it is just a fantastic movie that took the premise of, it's a Captain America movie, but let's put pretty much all the Avengers back in this movie, but still maintain the whole Captain America feel to this movie. It really does act as a direct sequel to Winter Soldier, while still having elements of Age of Ultron play into it a little bit. But at no point in this entire movie is Captain America overshadowed by the other characters, and there's a lot of them put into this movie, and I think that's what makes it such a great movie. Once again, the Russos just deliver tight action, great storytelling throughout this entire movie, and it's absolutely fantastic, and it's shot straight to number 3 on my list. Number 2. Number 2 is Guardians of the Galaxy. That's right, I can't go past a good space movie. I love them, and I think Star Wars is to blame for that. But this was just, once again, such a nice change of pace, and that's the good thing about these Marvel movies. They're not set to one sort of film archetype. They can sort of, you know, delve in and out of all these different movie tropes, but still leave that Marvel imprint on each of them. And while this movie felt huge and fantastical and so removed from the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it, it's still steeped in all of that Marvel feeling, and just the feeling of fun, the great action, awesome characters, and what is becoming a bit of a Marvel trope, unfortunately, pretty forgettable villain, but you know what? The movie's fun, so I look past that. Once again, I saw this in IMAX in 3D, so it may skew my feelings about the movie, but I have seen it since, and I laughed just as much then as I do now. It is fantastic, and definitely number 2 on my list. Number 1. Of course, it has to be The Avengers. It is the movie no one thought could happen, and when they said it was going to happen, the movie no one thought could actually work. Can you take all of these established superheroes from all the individual movies, put them in one movie altogether, and make it actually work, make it entertaining? And they nailed it. And it's a fantastic ride from start to finish. You get introductions to all of these characters again. They all have their roles to play. None of them are overshadowed by the other. They all have great moments in this movie, and it just worked. And that is in itself a massive achievement. Joss Whedon got the balance right between character moments, story moments, funny moments, action moments. It's just a beautiful little collage of all of those things put together in the right order to make a cohesive story, a great villain, some great action, some great character moments, some character progression from pretty much everyone in the movie as well. It's just that thing that we never ever thought that we would see. All of our favourite comic book characters in one film together. And to drive the point home, this is actually really hard to do. DC have tried to do it, and DC haven't done it very well. Now, don't get me wrong, I love my DC stuff, but it just goes to show that actually putting together all of these characters in one movie, in one singular universe, is really hard to do and really hard to nail. So the fact that Marvel have done it pretty well so far means that it's not an easy thing to do if DC, with a arguably more familiar line of characters, can't do the same thing. Now, I'm not trying to DC bash. This is about Marvel and why I love their movies. And they're just, once again, across the list, across my entire list, they are all just fun as hell movies. And that's what you want to go to the cinema for. You want to go to have fun, laugh, enjoy, gasp, cry, all that sort of stuff. And I've got to say, these 10 Marvel movies do all of those things for me. So what are your top 10 MCU movies? Let me know in the comments down below. Click right here for all your movie needs. And as always, guys, catch you in the next one. I'm totally not DC bashing. Look. Batman hat, Iron Man shirt. I love both.